Welcome to our deep dive on feeling stuck. You know, it's fascinating all the stuff you sent over, articles, notes, everything. We've got psychology, we've got going solo, even inspiring stories of people who, well, they didn't let stuck win. It sounds like you're really digging deep into this.
It's something we all go through, right? Definitely worth exploring. It's not just a quick feeling. There's some deep psychology behind it.
Yeah, and I see fear kind of popping up everywhere in these articles. Fear of failing, fear of what people think, just fear of the unknown, I guess, all that.
Fear is a big part of it, yeah. But it's interesting, the sources talk about how that fear gets worse when we feel out of control. They even mention how big events like, well, the pandemic really messed with people's sense of control, made things way harder.
Makes total sense.
Mhm.
When your routine is gone, when everything feels upside down, yeah, you'd feel lost. It's like,
Mhm.
how could you plan for tomorrow when today feels so shaky?
Exactly. One study actually showed that when we can't control what's happening around us, we get less motivated, more helpless. It's like if the world feels crazy, how can we believe we can make any progress?
So it's not just like being scared to move forward. It's feeling like you can't change things in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that feeling, that powerlessness, it makes the fear even worse, like a double whammy.
No wonder everyone felt stuck during the pandemic. But few, at least these sources say it's not forever.
Oh, definitely temporary. One article compared it to quicksand. You struggle, you sink, you relax, you might just float back up. So sometimes the first step is just admitting you're stuck, not fighting it.
That's helpful, actually. Not pretending it's not there, but changing how you see it. Now, this is interesting. Some sources say going solo, like tackling things alone, can be better than asking for help. Seems weird, right? Don't we usually want support?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But there are these, well, unexpected benefits to figuring things out on your own.
Okay, like what? Spill the beans? What did the sources say?
Well, first off, it makes you rely on yourself more. When you're not waiting for someone else to fix things, you start trusting your gut, your skills.
So you get more confident.
Bingo. And that confidence, it doesn't stay in one place. You start seeing yourself as someone who can handle stuff, who can figure it out.
I can see how that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah.
What about creativity? Does going solo change that?
Big time. When you're not relying on others for answers, you have to get creative yourself, right? Think outside the box. Try your own ways of doing things. The sources say this can lead to way better solutions, actually.
So you become more resourceful, more inventive, because you have to be.
Hmm.
Makes sense. And wouldn't that also make you feel more accomplished? Like, I did that.
For sure. Doing something tough all on your own, that feels amazing. You get this real sense of pride, and that pushes you to do even more.
That feeling must be awesome. So going solo, it's not just being independent. It's learning what you're really capable of and believing in yourself more, like investing in your own growth.
Exactly. And it all connects to another big thing the sources talk about, challenges. Even though they stink sometimes, they're actually how we grow.
That's something I struggle with, seeing challenges as a good thing,
Yeah.
not just something to avoid. But these sources, they really push that idea.
And they're right to. We see challenges as roadblocks, but they're more like, well, stepping stones, like hidden opportunities.
Okay, but how do challenges equal opportunities? I don't get it.
Think of it this way. When you face something hard and you win, you get tougher.
Right.
You learn to handle those tough situations, you bounce back. It's like building mental muscle.
So every challenge is like a workout for our resilience.
Yeah. And the more you work it out, the stronger it gets. That means you'll be better prepared for whatever life throws at you next.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But is there more to it? Do the sources talk about other benefits aside from, not falling apart so easily?
Oh, yeah, tons. Challenges push you out of your comfort zone, and that's where the magic happens. When you're always challenged, you learn new stuff, adapt faster, and you kind of see the world differently.
It's like that saying, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And stepping outside of that comfort zone, that's how you find those hidden talents, the things you never knew you could do.
And you learn what you're not so good at, too.
Yeah.
Right? Which, honestly, that's just as important.
You got it. Challenges help you see yourself, the good and the bad, and that's key for growth. You focus on your strengths and figure out how to work around the weaknesses.
So you know yourself better inside and out. And use that to become, I guess, a better, more capable you.
You nailed it. That's one of the biggest benefits of facing those challenges head on.
It's like challenges are part of, well, self-discovery. Like a mirror, showing us what we're truly capable of.
Great analogy. And the more we face, the clearer that reflection gets.
So instead of being scared of challenges, we should be, like, excited.
Yeah.
Because they're chances to learn, grow, become the best versions of ourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we've talked about why we get stuck, why going solo can be good, and how challenges are actually like secret opportunities.
Mm.
But before we get into the specific tips from the sources, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on all of this?
You know, what strikes me is how these things, feeling stuck, going solo, embracing challenges, they're all connected. They're all about taking charge of our lives, our growth.
Yeah, like we're not just waiting for things to happen, we're making them happen.
Exactly. That's a really empowering idea, especially when you are feeling stuck. You have more control than you think. You can choose how to react, how to find opportunities, how to build the life you want.
That's pretty inspiring. And it's a good transition to the practical stuff the sources offer. Because knowing you can change is one thing, but how do you actually do it?
That's where the strategies come in. They're like a roadmap to turn that I can into I did. But before we get into all that, what's really sticking with you so far? What's hitting home?
I'm hooked on this idea of challenges being opportunities. Like if you face them head on, you get tougher. You step outside your comfort zone, you find hidden strengths. It's like looking at struggle in a whole new way.
That's a great takeaway. And it sets us up perfectly to talk about these strategies because
Yeah.
they're all about turning those challenges into stepping stones, not roadblocks.
Can't wait to dive into that. But I think we'll save it for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds like a plan. So, ready to get tactical? Let's talk strategy.
Let's do it. What did the sources say about actually getting unstuck? Like the how-to stuff.
Well, they all agree on one thing. You got to define the problem. Sounds obvious, but people skip this all the time.
So no more just saying, ugh, I'm stuck.
Exactly. Get specific. What's the real challenge? What's stopping you? One source even said just saying it out loud can help, like a lot.
Like you're shining a spotlight on it, making it less scary.
Yeah. By naming it, you start taking control.
Okay, define it. What's next?
Break it down. Smaller chunks, easier to manage.
Yeah.
Classic problem solving, and these sources love it.
Right, like who climbs a mountain in one giant leap? You got to take it step by step.
That's it. Your brain's like, okay, this I can do. And every little win, it motivates you for the next one.
It's like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Perfectly said. And talking about steps, ever heard of the Pomodoro technique?
Yeah, that 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off thing. I've tried it. Really helps me focus, especially when I'm like drowning in a task.
It's great for staying productive, avoiding burnout. Those breaks let your brain catch its breath so you come back stronger.
Like a mini vacation for your mind every 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of burnout, one source talked about managing stress.
Super important. Stress blocks you up. You get all tense, fight or flight mode, and your brain can't think straight. Makes decisions harder. Problem solving impossible.
It's like anxiety's running the show.
Totally. So, gotta manage that stress. Deep breaths, meditation, nature walks, whatever works, calm mind, calm body. Then you can think clearly and actually tackle those challenges.
So it's not just pushing through, it's taking care of yourself too. Making space to, I guess, process all those tough feelings.
You got it. And speaking of space, writing can help too. Lots of sources said journaling, just free writing, good for letting stuff out, getting clarity.
Like decluttering your mind, but on paper.
Exactly. You get those thoughts OUT, see them differently, and boom, solutions pop up that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
It's like a conversation with yourself, but more, I don't know, productive.
Yeah. And sometimes just putting it into words, that's enough to understand it better, release the pressure.
So far we've got define the problem, break it down, Pomodoro, manage stress, write it out. Anything else? What else do they say?
Realistic goals, that's a big one, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed. It's tempting to aim for the moon, but honestly, that can backfire. Makes you feel more stuck.
Because if you set the bar too high, you're basically setting yourself up to fail.
Right.
Right.
And then comes the self-doubt, the negative talk. The sources say, focus on smaller goals, achievable ones. That builds confidence.
Baby steps instead of like trying to jump a canyon.
Exactly. Every little goal you hit, it's a win. And all those wins, they add up.
It's like laying bricks to build a path. Each one is small, but eventually you've got a walkway.
I love that. And while you're building that path, don't forget to be nice to yourself. Self-compassion, huge theme in these sources.
Yeah, we're so hard on ourselves, always criticizing, focusing on what went wrong.
We set these crazy high standards and beat ourselves up when we don't reach them. But the sources say, hey, setbacks happen. Everybody messes up. It's okay.
So cut ourselves some slack, even when we, well, screw up.
Totally. Remember, you're human. You're a work in progress. And imperfection, it's actually kind of freeing.
It takes the pressure off. You're not trying to be perfect, just doing your best, learning along the way.
That's the spirit. That self-compassion makes bouncing back so much easier.
Like you're your own best friend, not your worst enemy.
Exactly. We all need that friendly voice sometimes, reminding us we're doing all right, we're on the right path, we've got this.
Now, this one was interesting. Seeking out new perspectives. Why is that important when you're stuck?
Gets you out of your own head. When we're stuck, we see things one way, the same worries on repeat. But a new angle, that can be all it takes.
Like you're lost in the woods, climb a tree, suddenly you see where you are.
Perfect analogy. Talk to a mentor, read something different, take a break, and do something totally unrelated. Lots of ways to get that new view.
Because sometimes the best ideas hit you when you're not trying, right? Like in the shower, boom, there it is.
Happens all the time. Sometimes step away, let your brain work in the background, and the solution appears.
So don't force it. Create space for inspiration.
Exactly. A physical space, mental space, even emotional space. Shift your energy, relax, and be open to new things.
This is all making so much sense. I see how these strategies, they're all connected. It's about setting yourself up for growth, for change.
You're getting it. It's not about one magic bullet. It's about how you approach challenges, what makes you keep going even when it's tough.
Like building a toolkit, right? For resilience, resourcefulness. Got your hammer to break down problems, wrench for stress, screwdriver for new perspectives.
Love it. More tools, better equipped you are for anything life throws your way.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Defining, breaking down, Pomodoro, stress, writing, goals, self-compassion, new perspectives. Anything else before we move on?
Just one thing to highlight, action. You can know all this stuff, but if you don't do anything, it's useless.
Like having a map but never leaving home.
Yep. So don't just think about getting unstuck. Actually get unstuck. Take a step, even a tiny one. Try one of these things. See what works.
Because doing something, that's how you break free.
Nailed it. Especially these days, it's so easy to get stuck in overthinking, analysis paralysis, all that.
Yes, so much thinking, no doing.
Right. So the challenge is move from thought to action. Take those ideas and turn them into like actual things you do in the real world.
And I bet that first step is the toughest.
It can be, but it's also the most important. You break free, you got going, you prove to yourself you can move forward.
Like you're telling your brain, all right, time to change things.
Exactly. And that sends a powerful message. It can start a whole chain reaction, real change, lasting change.
Talking about change, earlier we mentioned the sources had those inspiring stories. People who overcame huge obstacles. I want to hear more about them. It's always encouraging, seeing people actually live this stuff out.
Oh yeah, those stories are great, especially when you're feeling stuck. They show us it's possible. Even when things look really bad, you can still do amazing things.
So who did the sources talk about?
Well, Nick Vujicic, his story is incredible.
I've heard of him. He was born without limbs.
Yeah, huge challenges right from the start. But he didn't let that define him. He turned it into, well, inspiration.
He didn't let it stop him.
Not at all. He swims, surfs, even plays golf. And he travels the world, sharing his story, motivating people.
Wow. Talk about the human spirit, right? Who else? Who else did they mention?
Malala Yousafzai.
Oh, yeah, the young woman who fought for girls' education?
That's the one. She stood up for what she believed in, even when it was dangerous.
I mean, she was shot by the Taliban.
Yeah, but that didn't stop her. She kept fighting, and her bravery, her determination, won her a Nobel Peace Prize. Youngest person ever to win it.
Such a role model.
Yeah.
And what about Oprah? Remember, one source talked about her, too.
Oprah's story is classic. From tough beginnings to, well, a media powerhouse, she shows what hard work, believing in yourself can do.
And she's always reinventing herself. News anchor, talk show, her own network, now producing, acting, writing. It's crazy.
Always growing, always pushing boundaries. That's a great lesson for everyone. Never too late to learn, to find new passions.
Like she embodies that whole challenges or opportunities thing.
Totally. And these stories, they might seem extraordinary, but they're also relatable. We all face challenges. It's normal to struggle. And it is possible to overcome them.
Gives us hope to keep going, even when things are uncertain.
Exactly. We all have that potential for greatness inside. Just gotta believe it and keep taking those steps.
And sometimes, seeing others do it, that's all we need to spark that belief.
Absolutely. That's the power of these stories. We see ourselves in their successes.
One quote from the sources really stuck with me. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Steve Jobs.
That's a good one. Finding purpose in what you do, being passionate, that's key.
Because when you love it, you're more likely to keep going, even when it's hard, right? and do amazing things.
Totally. Even if you haven't found that perfect thing yet, doesn't mean you can't enjoy what you're doing NW. Find that connection, find meaning, even in the small tasks.
So bring passion to everything, whether it's the dream job or just a step towards it.
Exactly. That can change your whole experience, how much you care, how successful you are.
Okay, we've covered a lot. The whys of feeling stuck, why going solo can be good, that whole idea that obstacles are opportunities, plus a ton of practical stuff. And we've got these inspiring stories to keep us going.
It's been a great deep dive. Now I'm curious, what's resonating with you? What are you taking away from all this?
This focus on taking charge, that's huge. It's not about waiting for a rescue. It's about making things happen, creating the change you want to see.
That's so important, especially these days. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, powerless.
Right. It's like we're constantly told, you're not enough, buy this, achieve that, then you'll be happy. But these sources are like, nope, it's not about that.
Happiness, fulfillment, that comes from inside, from knowing your worth, following your heart, living your values, making a difference.
And that starts with taking charge, making choices that actually matter to you.
Exactly. We have way more control than we think. We can create the life we want.
That's a powerful reminder. And it leads perfectly into, well, what about the listener? What can they do right now to start putting all this into practice?
That's what we'll talk about in the final part of this deep dive, turning insights into action, creating real, lasting change.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into getting unstuck. We've talked about the psychology, the solo thing, how challenges are actually good, even gathered a bunch of strategies.
Lots to think about. But now it's time to make it real. Apply it to your life.
Exactly. Knowing stuff is great, but actually doing something, that's what matters. So, for everyone listening, what's one thing you can do, like today, to get moving?
Doesn't have to be huge, a complete life overhaul or anything. Just a small step. Write down your goals, maybe. Or think of one little obstacle, something you want to tackle. Even just 15 minutes of focused work on that project you've been putting off.
All good ideas. And it's funny how small things can make a big difference. You start taking those steps and it's like you get this energy, keeps you going even when it's tough.
For sure. And that's where those strategies we talked about come in handy. Think about which ones really spoke to you. Breaking things down, maybe? Or that Pomodoro thing for focus. Or some journaling to clear your head. Pick one, try it this week, see what happens.
Like we gave you a menu, now you get to choose what you want to try.
Exactly. And just like with food, you got to experiment sometimes, find what you like best, try different things, change them up, even combine them, get creative.
It's about finding what works for you, what helps you get unstuck in your own way.
Right. And hey, it's okay to ask for help too. Sometimes we need a little push, right?
Right.
Talk to a friend, a mentor, even a coach, if that helps.
We've talked a lot about, like, the outside stuff that gets in the way. But what about the stuff inside? The self-doubt, those beliefs that hold us back, the fear of messing up.
Oh, that inner critic, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the biggest obstacle.
So how do we deal with that?
First, gotta notice it. Pay attention to those thoughts. Are you putting yourself down all the time, focusing on what you're bad at, not what you're good at, letting fear make your choices?
Like, step back and just observe your thoughts. Without judging, just being curious, being kind to yourself.
Exactly. And once you see those patterns, those negative thoughts, you can start asking, is this even true? What proof do I have? A lot of times those thoughts, they're just based on old fears, insecurities, stuff that doesn't matter anymore.
Like they're bullies. And you got to stand up to them. Say, nope, not listening to you anymore.
You got it. The more you do that, the less power they have over you.
And when those negative thoughts quiet down, that's when the good stuff can come in. The positive beliefs, the self-confidence.
Exactly. So instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what you can. What you've already done, what you're capable of. Celebrate every win, even the tiny ones. Remind yourself how much you've achieved.
Shift that inner voice from critic to cheerleader. Be your own best advocate.
Yes. That change in mindset, that's where the magic is.
It's like rewiring your brain, setting yourself up for success and happiness.
Love that. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. We're always changing, growing, so our beliefs have to evolve too. Be patient, celebrate the small wins, and just keep moving forward.
Great advice. We've thrown a lot of information at you in this deep dive, but now it's up to you. Take what resonates, make it your own.
Exactly. This is just a starting point. Try things out, find your own way, and most importantly, believe in yourself.
You have the power to break free, to overcome anything, to build a life that truly matters to you.
So go out there and make it happen.
And that wraps up our deep dive into getting unstuck. Hope it's given you some insights, inspiration, maybe even a little push in the right direction.
Keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep. See you next time.